Yo, all the regular soldiers lived. Oh look, she lived too. That's crazy, bro. Yeah, that one was destroyed. I think. Looks like. Alright, I gotta go home real quick. Just to get rid of all this stuff that I have. So now... done with the Great Gate. Martin was pleased to see me return alive from the Great Gate. I gave him the Great Sigil Stone, and he has gone to Cloud Ruler Temple to prepare for the portal opening ritual. Now, if we go back to Bruma real quick... there's actually a statue here.
Greetings to you.
Is it here now, though, or...? Entering the city from the north gate. Yeah, it's not here yet. It looks like... it's supposed to be like, I think, here instead of the stone. Alright,
Did you?
let me see. So we gotta go back to Cloud Ruler Temple.
I need a moment of your time. It's urgent. Of course. What troubles you? Club?
Whoa. That's cool. Where's he at? Oh, he's right there. So, looks like he has, did I read? Doors of Oblivion, the Firmament, and the Refugees. Damn! And light armor, huh? 28, damn! Oh, this is about the... okay. And there's Oblivion. Alright, let's check out the Firmament. So, the Firmament by Folke. The stars of Tamriel are divided into the 13 constellations. 3 of them are major constellations known as the Guardians. These are the Warrior, the Mage, and the Thief. Each of the Guardians protect its 3 charges from the 13th constellation, the Serpent. When the sun rises near one of the constellations, it is that constellation's season. Each constellation has a season of approximately 1 month. The Serpent has no season, for it moves about in the heavens, usually threatening one of the other constellations. The Warrior. Warrior is the first Guardian constellation, and he protects his charges during their seasons. The Warrior's own season is last seed, when his strength is needed for the harvest. His charges are the Lady, the Steed, and the Lord. Those born under the sign of the Warrior are skilled with weapons of all kinds, but prone to short tempers. Yeah, that's funny. Then the Mage. The Mage is a Guardian constellation whose season is Rain's Hand, when Magicka was first used by men. His charges are the Apprentice, the Golem, and the Ritual. And those born under the Mage have more Magicka and talent for all kinds of spellcasting, but are often arrogant and absent-minded. The Thief. The Thief is the last Guardian constellation, and her season is the darkest month of the Evening Star. Her charges are the Lover, the Shadow, and the Tower. Those born under the sign of the Thief are not typically thieves, though they take risks more often and only rarely come to harm. They will run out of luck eventually, however, and rarely live as long as those born under other signs. Oh, damn. The serpent. Serpent wanders about in the sky and has no season, though its motions are predictable to a degree. No characteristics are common to all who are born under the sign of the serpent. Those born under this sign are the most blessed and the most cursed. The Lady. Lady is one of the warrior's charges, and her season is Heartfire. Those born under the sign of the Lady are kind and tolerant. The Steed. Steed is one of the warrior's charges, and her season is Mid-Year. Those born under the sign of the Steed are impatient and always hurrying from one place to another. The Lord. Lord's season is the first seed, and he oversees all of Tamriel during the planting. Those born under the sign of the Lord are stronger and healthier than those born under other signs. The Apprentice. Apprentice season is Sun's height. Those born under the sign of the Apprentice have a special affinity for magic of all kinds, but are more vulnerable to magic as well. The Atronach. Atronach, often called the Golem, is one of the mage's charges. Its season is Sun's dusk. Those born under this sign are natural sorcerers with deep reserves of magicka, but they cannot generate magicka of their own. The Ritual. The Ritual is one of the mage's charges, and its season is Morningstar. Those born under this sign have a variety of abilities, depending on the aspects of the moons and the divines. The Lover. Lover is one of the thief's charges, and her season is Sun's Dawn. Those born under the sign of the Lover are graceful and passionate. The Shadow. Shadow's season is Second Seed. The Shadow grants those born under her sign the ability to hide in shadows. The Tower. Tower is one of the thief's charges, and its season is Frostfall. Those born under the sign of the Tower have a knack for finding gold and can open locks of all kinds. That's it. So I think mine is a warrior, right? Knights of the Thorn, Honorary Knight, nice. Blades, Knight Brother. Mage's Guild, Archmage. Knights of the Nine, Divine Crusader. Pilgrim. What is my sign? The Warrior, yeah. Okay. Then we got the Refugees and the Doors of Oblivion. So, let's read the Refugees. The Refugees by Garros Albrae. The smell of the bay oozed through the stones of the cellar, salt and brined decay. The cellar itself had its own sense of old wine, turned to vinegar, mildew, and the more exotic spices of herbs the healers had brought with them to tend to the wounded. There were more than 50 people squeezed into the big earthen room which had once been forgotten storage for the brothel above. The groaning and whimpering had ceased for now, and all was still, as if the hospital had turned into a mass grave. "Mother," a Red Guard boy whispered, "what was that?" The boy's mother was about to answer him when there was another rolling roar from outside, which grew louder and louder, as if some great but incorporeal beast had come into the cellar. The walls trembled, and dust burst from the ceiling in a rain of powder. Unlike the last time, no one screamed. They waited until the weird haunting sound had passed, and then was replaced by the soft rumble of the distant battle. A wounded soldier began whispering Mara's prayer from the doomed. Mankar, a Bosmer woman curled up in a cot, hissed, her eyes feverish, flesh white and wet with sweat. "He is coming." "Who is coming?" asked the boy, grasping his mother's skirt tight. "Who do you think, lad? The sweets monger?" A grizzled one-armed Redguard growled. "The Camoran usurper." The boy's mother shot an angry look at the old warrior. "She doesn't know what she's saying. She's sick." The boy nodded. His mother was usually right. He had not yet even been born when people began whispering that the Camoran usurper was coming towards her little village, and she had packed up their belongings to flee. Their neighbors had laughed at her, she said, saying that Rihad and Taneth would handily defeat him. Her husband, Lukar's father, who he was never to meet, had also laughed at her. It was the harvest time, and she would miss out on the celebrations, but his mother, Miak-El, was right. 2 weeks after she fled the village, she heard the tale that it had been obliterated during the night with no survivors. Rihad and Taneth had both fallen. The usurper was unstoppable. Lukar had been born and grown up in refugee camps throughout Hammerfell. He had never known a friend for more than a few days. He knew that when the sky burned red to the west, they would pack up and move east. When it burned to the south, they moved north. At last, after 12 years of moving from camp to camp, they had taken passage across the Iliac Bay to the province of High Rock and the barony of Dwinnen. There Miakel had promised and hoped that they would have a peaceful, permanent home. It was so green there, it blinded him. Unlike Hammerfell, which was only green in certain seasons and in certain places, Dwinnen was verdant year-round, until wintertide when it began to snow, and Lucar had been frightened of it at first. He was ashamed to think of it now, when there was real danger but the red clouds of war, the stink and the pain of the refugee camp, that was familiar. Now the red sky was on the horizon of the bay and coming closer, and he longed for the days when a scattering of white made him cry. "Mankar," the Bosmer woman cried out again. "He is coming and he will bring death." "No one is coming," said a pretty young Breton healer, coming to the woman's side. "Hush now." "Hello?" came a voice from above. The whole room, almost together as one, gasped. A Bosmer limped down the shoddy wooden stairs, his friendly face very obviously not that of the Camoran usurper. "Sorry if I frightened you," he said. "I was told there were healers here and I could use a little help." Rosanya hurried to take a look at the Bosmer's wounds on his leg and chest, disheveled, but still beautiful. She was one of the favorites at the brothel, who had learned her healing skill along with her more vocational skills at the House of Debella. She carefully but quickly pulled the rent, leather, cuirass, chausses, tassets, greaves, and boots off of him, and placed them to the side while she examined the injuries. The old Redguard warrior picked them up and studied them. "You were in the war?" "Next to it is probably a better way to put it," the Bosmer smiled, wincing slightly at Rosanya's touch. "Behind it, beside it, in front of it. My name's Orban Elmlock. I'm a scout. I try to avoid the real battle so I can get back and report what I see. A good job for people who don't like the color of their own blood very much." "Hism," said the warrior, shaking Orban's hand. "I can't fight anymore, but I can fix up this armor if you're going to return." "You're a leathersmith?" "Nah, just a jack of all trades," replied Hism, opening up a small canister of wax to prep the hard but flexible leather. "I could tell you were a scout from the armor, though. Can you tell us what you've been spying on? We've been down in here for half a day now, with no word from the outside." "The entire Iliac Bay is one great battlefield on the waves," said Orban and sighed as Rosanya's spell began to close his jagged but shallow wounds. "We've shut off the invasion from the mouth of the bay, but I was coming from the coast, and the enemy's army is marching over the Rothgarian mountains. That's where I had my little scuffle. It's not too surprising, moving the flank in from the side while the front battle is occupied. It's a play right out of Cameron's Caltus's book of tricks the Heart King borrowed." "The Heart King?" Lucar asked. He had been listening quietly, understanding everything except that. "Haemon Camoran, the Camoran usurper, Haemon Heart King, they're all the same, lad. He's a complicated fellow and needs more than one name. You know him?" Miakel asked, stepping forward. "Near on 20 years before this whole black bloody business, I was Camoran Caltus's chief scout, and Haemon was his sorcerer and advisor. I helped them both when they were vying for the Camoran throne and began the conquest of..." Ouch! Rosanya has ceased her healing. With the eyes of fury, she had reversed her spell, and the closed, mended wounds were opening again. Dark infections returning. She held him with surprising strength when Orban tried to pull back. "You bastard!" the healer courtesan hissed. "I have a cousin in Falinesti, a priestess. She's fine," Orban yelped. "Lord Kaltos was very adamant about not harming anyone who did not pose a threat. I think the people of Quach would disagree with that assessment," said Hism coldly. "That was horrible, the worst thing I have ever seen," Orban nodded. "Kaltos wept when he saw what Haemon had done. My master did everything he could to stop it, begging the Heart King to return to Valenwood. But he turned on Kaltos and we fled. We are not your enemy, and we have never been. Kaltos could do nothing to prevent the horror that the usurper has brought to the Colovian West and Hammerfell, and he has fought for 15 years to prevent more." The frightening bestial roar passed through the cellar again, even louder than before. The wounded could not help groaning in helpless terror. "And what is that?" Miakel sneered. "Another of Cameron's Caltus's tricks that the usurper picked up?" "It is indeed a trick, as a matter of fact," Orban yelled above the screech. "It's a phantasm he employs to scare people. He had to use fear tactics in the beginning when his power was ascending, and he has to fall back on them now for his power is waning. That is why it took him 2 years to conquer Valenwood, and another 13 to conquer Hammerfell. No offense to you Red Guards, but it isn't only your battle prowess that has been holding him back. He does not have the support he used to have from his master. The echoing roar increased in intensity before once again falling silent. Mankar, the Bosmer woman groaned. He comes and he will destroy all. His master? Asked Lukar, not, but Orban's eyes had gone to the Bosmer woman, curled up in her blood-soaked cot. Who is she? Orban asked Rosanya. One of the refugees, of course, from your friendly little war in Valenwood before you and your Kaltos changed sides. The healer replied, I think her name is Khalees. By Jeffrey, Orban whispered under his breath, limping over to the woman's cot and wiping the sweat and blood-soaked hair from her pallid face. Khalees, it's Orban. Do you remember me? How did you get here? Did he hurt you? Mankar, Khalees moaned. That's all she said, Rosanya. I don't know what that is, Orban frowned. Not the usurper, though. She knew him, too, very well. She was a favorite of his. His favorites, you, Kaltos, her, all seem to turn against him, said Miakel. That is why he will fall, replied Hizim. Armored footfall rang along the ceiling, and the cellar door burst open. It was the captain of Baron Othruk's castle guards. The docks are on fire. If you want to live, you'll need to take refuge at Castle Waitmore. We need help, Rosanya called back, but she knew that the guards were needed for defense, not to help carry the sick to safety. With 10 guards who could be spared and the most able-bodied of the wounded assisting, the cellar was emptied as the streets of Dwynnon filled with smoke, and fire began to spread through the chaos. It had been a single fireball miscast out at sea striking the docks, but the damage would be tremendous. Some hours later, in the courtyard of the mighty castle, the healers were able to set up the cots and begin to tend once again to the suffering of the innocent. The first person Rosanya found was Orban Emlock. Even with his wounds reopened, he had helped carry 2 of the patients into the castle. I'm sorry, she said as she pressed her healing hands onto his wounds. I lost my temper. I forgot that I am a healer. Where is Khalees? Orban asked. She's not here? Rosanya said, looking around. She must have run away. Run away? But wasn't she injured? It was not a healthy situation, but new mothers can surprise you with what they can do when it's all over. She was pregnant? Orban gasped. Yes, it wasn't such a difficult birth in the end. She was holding the boy in her arms when I saw her last. She said she had done it herself. She was pregnant, Orban murmured again. The mistress of the Camoran usurper was pregnant. Word quickly spread throughout the castle that the battle was over, and more than that, the war was over. Haemon Camoran's forces had been defeated at sea and in the mountains. The Heart King was dead. Lukar watched down from the battlements into the dark woods that surrounded Dwynnon. He had heard about Khalees, and he imagined a desperate woman fleeing with her newborn baby in her arms into the wilderness. Khalees would have nowhere to go, no one to protect them. She and her baby would be a refugee like Miak El and him had been. Reflecting back, he remembered her words. He is coming, and he will bring death, he will destroy all. Lukar remembered her eyes. She was sick but not afraid. Who was this he who was coming if the Camoran usurper was dead? Did she say nothing else? Asked Orban. She told me the baby's name, Rosanya replied. Mankar. Oh. Wow. Interesting. So, damn, that's crazy. Wow. So the baby is now the enemy. And we got the Doors of Oblivion by Sief Ijhija. When thou enterest into Oblivion, Oblivion entereth into thee. Naitirolar. The greatest mage who ever lived was my master Morian Xenos. You have heard of him as the author of the book on Oblivion, the standard text for all of the matters Daedric. For all on matters Daedric. Despite many entreaties over the years, he refused to update his classic book with his new discoveries and theories because he found that the more one delves into these realms, the less certain one is. He did not want to conjecture, he wanted facts. For decades before and after the publication of On Oblivion, Xenos compiled a vast personal library on the subject of Oblivion, the home of the Daedra. He divided his time between his research and personal magical growth on the assumption that should he succeed in finding a way into the dangerous world beyond and behind ours, he would need much power to wander its dark paths. 12 years before Xenos began the journey he had prepared his life to make, he hired me as his assistant. I possessed the 3 attributes he required for the position. I was young and eager to help without question. I could read any book once and memorize its contents, and despite my youth, I was already a master of conjuration. Xenos too was a master of conjuration, indeed a master at all the known and unknown schools, but he did not want to rely on his ability alone in the most perilous of his research. In an underground vault, he summoned Daedra to interview them on their native land, and for that he needed another conjurer to make certain they came, were bound, and were sent away again without incident. I will never forget that vault, not for its look, which was plain and unadorned, but for what you couldn't see. There were scents that lingered long after the summoned creatures had left: flowers and sulfur, sex and decay, power and madness. They haunt me still to this very day. Conjuration, for the layman unacquainted with its workings, connects the caster's mind with that of the summoned. It is a tenuous link meant only to lure, hold, and dismiss, but in the hands of a master it can be much stronger. The Sigix and Dwemer can, in the Dwemer's case perhaps I should say could, connect with the minds of others and converse miles apart, a skill that is sometimes called telepathy. Over the course of my employment, Xenos and I developed such a link between one another. It was accidental, a result of 2 powerful conjurers working closely together, but we decided that it would be invaluable should he succeed in traveling to Oblivion. Since the denizens of that land could be touched even by the skills of an amateur conjurer, it was possible we could continue to communicate while he was there, so I could record his discoveries. The doors to Oblivion, to use Maurian Xenos' phrase, are not easily found, and we exhausted many possibilities before we found one where we held the key. The Sigix of Artaeum have a place they call the Dreaming Cave, where it is said one can enter into the Daedric realms and return. Lachesis, Sothasil, Nematig, and many others have been recorded as using this means, but despite many entreaties to the Order, we were denied its use. Calaris, the leader of the Order, has told us it has been sealed off for the safety of all. We had hopes of using the ruins of the Battlespire to access Oblivion. The Weir Gate still stands, though the old proving grounds of the Imperial Battle Mages itself was shattered some years ago in Jagar Tharn's time. Sadly, after an exhaustive search through the detritus, we had to conclude that when it was destroyed, all access to the realms beyond, the Solkarn, the Shade Perilous, and the Havoc Wellhead had been broken. It was probably for the good, but it frustrated our goal. The reader may have heard of other doors, and he may be assured we attempted to find them all. Some are pure legend, or at any rate not traceable based on the information left behind. There are references in lore to Maruk's Abyss, the Currington Mirror, the Mantellin Crux, the Crossroads, the Mouth, a riddle of an alchemical formula called Jacinth and Rising Sun, and many other places and objects that are said to be doors, but we could not find. Some exist but cannot be entered safely. The whirlpool in the Abyssian called the Maelstrom of Baal can make ships disappear, and may be a portal into Oblivion, but the trauma of riding its waters would surely slay any who tried. Likewise, we did not consider it worth the risk to leap from the Pillar of Thros, a 1,000-foot tall spiral of coral, though we witnessed the sacrifices the Slodes made there. Some victims were killed by the fall, but some indeed seemed to vanish before being dashed on the rocks. Since the Slode did not seem certain why some were taken and some died, we did not favor the odds of the plunge. The simplest and most maddeningly complex way to go to Oblivion was simply to cease to be here and begin to be there. Throughout history, there are examples of mages who seem to travel to the realms beyond ours seemingly at will. Many of these voyagers are long dead, if they ever existed, but we were able to find one still living. In a tower off Zafirabel Bay on the island of Vardenfell in the province of Morrowind, there exists a very old, very reclusive wizard named Divathfir. He was not easy to reach, and he was reluctant to share with Maurian Xenos the secret door to Oblivion. Fortunately, my master's knowledge of lore impressed Fear, and he taught him the way. I would be breaking my promise to Xenos and Fear to explain the procedure here, and I would not divulge it even if I could. If there is dangerous knowledge to be had, that is it. But I do not reveal too much to say that Fear's scheme relied on exploiting a series of portals to various realms created by a Telvanni wizard long missing and presumed dead. Against the disadvantage of this limited number of access points, we weighed the relative reliability and security of passage, and considered ourselves fortunate in our informant. Morian Xenos then left his world to begin his exploration. I stayed at the library to transcribe his information and help him with any research he needed. Dust, he whispered to me on the first day of his voyage. Despite the inherent dreariness of the word, I could hear his excitement in his voice echoing in my mind. I can see from one end of the world to the other in a million shades of gray. There is no sky or ground or air, only particles floating, falling, whirling about me. I must levitate and breathe by magical means. Xenos explored the nebulous land for some time, encountering vaporous creatures and palaces of smoke. Though he never met the prince, we concluded that he was an ash pit, said to be the home of Malakath, where anguish, betrayal, and broken promises like ash filled the bitter air. The sky is on fire, I heard him say as he moved on to the next realm. The ground is sludge but traversable. I see blackened ruins all around me like a war was fought here in the distant past. The air is freezing. I cast blooms of warmth all around me, but it still feels like daggers of ice stabbing me in all directions. This was Cold Harbor, where Morlock Bal was prince. It appeared to Xenos as if it were a future Nirn under the king of Rape, desolate and barren, filled with suffering. I could hear Morian Xenos weep at the images he saw, and shiver at the sight of the Imperial Palace, spattered with blood and excrement. Too much beauty, Xenos gasped when he went to the next realm. I am half blind. I see flowers and waterfalls, majestic trees, a city of silver, but it is all a blur. The colors run like water. It's raining now, and the wind smells like perfume. This surely is Moonshadow, where Zura dwells. Xenos was right, and astonishingly, he even had audiences with the Queen of Dusk and Dawn in her Rose Palace. She listened to his tale with a smile and told him of the coming of the Neveverine. My master found Moonshadow so lovely he wished to stay there, half blind forever, but he knew he must move on and complete his journey of discovery. I am in a storm, he told me as he entered the next realm. He described the landscape of dark twisted trees, howling spirits, and billowing mist, and I thought he might have entered the deadlands of Mehrunes Dagon, but then he said quickly, "No, I am no longer in a forest. There was a flash of lightning, and now I am on a ship. The mast is tattered, the crew is slaughtered. Something is coming through the waves. Oh gods, wait, now I am in the dank dungeon in a cell." He was not in the Deadlands, but Quagmire, the nightmare realm of Vernima. Every few minutes there was a flash of lightning and reality shifted, always to something more horrible and horrifying. A dark castle one moment, a den of ravening beasts the next. A moonlit swamp, a coffin where he was buried alive. Fear got the better of my master, and he quickly passed to the next realm. I heard him laugh. I feel like I'm home now. Morian Xenos described to me an endless library, shelves stretching on in every direction, stacks on top of stacks, pages floated on a mystical wind that he could not feel. Every book had a black cover with no title. He could see no one, but felt the presence of ghosts moving through the stacks, rifling through books, ever searching. It was Apocrypha, the home of Hermaeus Mora, where all forbidden knowledge can be found. I felt a shudder in my mind, but I could not tell if it was my master's or mine. Morian Xenos never traveled to another realm that I know of. Throughout his visits to the first 4 realms, my master spoke to me constantly. Upon entering the Apocrypha, he became a quieter, as he was lured into the world of research and study, the passions that had controlled his heart while on Nirn. I would frantically try to call to him, but he closed his mind to me. Then he would whisper, "This cannot be. No one would ever guess the truth. I must learn more. I see the world a last illusion's shimmer. It is crumbling all around us." I would cry back to him, begging him to tell me what was happening, what he was seeing, what he was learning. I even tried using conjuration to summon him as if he were Daedra himself, but he refused to leave. Morian Xenos was lost. I last received a whisper from him 6 months ago. Before then, it had been 5 years, and 3 before that. His thoughts are no longer intelligible in any language. Perhaps he is still in Apocrypha, lost but happy, in a trap he refuses to escape. Perhaps he slipped between the stacks and passed into the madhouse of Sheogorath, losing his sanity forever. I would save him if I could. I would silence his whispers if I could. That was pretty crazy. Alright. So I think that's all the books.
Congratulations on your victory, sir.
Belisarius.
What can I do for you, sir?
Utterly Temple?
I'd have to say I'm partial to the Great Hall. On those cold nights, nothing warms your bones better than a roaring fire.
Rumors?
The Battle of Bruma was a great victory. The Mythic Dawn have learned that we are not defenseless. May Talos guide you.
Let's talk to Martin.
I have everything in place for the ritual. I'll open the portal whenever you're ready. I don't know what you'll find in Camoran's paradise. I do know the portal I create through the Mysterium Xarxes ritual will close behind you. You'll have to find another way back. I believe that Mankar Camoran acts as the anchor for paradise. Just as a sigil stone anchors an Oblivion gate in place. Kill Mankar Camoran, and you will unmake his paradise. Shall I open the portal to paradise? Are you ready?
Yes, open the portal to paradise.
Farewell, my friend. Our fate is in your hands. Bring back the Amulet of Kings. Brace yourself.
Alright. Do it to it. Whoa. Alright. Damn. That was pretty cool. You save it. Paradise.